Good morning, everyone. I, Radhika Fuljale, welcomes you all on behalf of Shah and Anchor Kachi Engineering College, Mumbai, India. We at Sakek Research Cell will take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you present here today for the webinar, hybrid webinar series of innovative and emerging technology in the field of research in collaboration with all our partners. Today, our speaker, Dr. Namrata Manglani, is going to tell us about superconductivity. Our speaker, Dr. Namrata Manglani, is PhD in theoretical high energy practical physics. She is assistant professor in Shahankar Kachi Engineering College in engineering science department. She has 15 plus years of teaching experience. She has 6 plus years of research experience. Before handing over to our speaker, I would like to make some announcement to all my attendees that if you have any queries or you want to ask any question to our speaker throughout the session, you can ask via Q&A chat box. Most frequently asked question will be answered at the end of the webinar and feedback link will be provided at the end of the webinar. Now I hand over the webinar to our speaker. Hello, ma'am.
Yes, you hear me,
Yes,
Radhika?
yes, ma'am. Can you share your screen?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Hello, Radhika
Huh?
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Am I seen and is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
So shall I start now?
Yes.
Hello, a very good morning to everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Shan Anchor Research Cell, Nilakshi Madam, and her whole team to give me this wonderful opportunity to present a topic which is an introduction to superconductivity. So I'll start now. What I have done is I have defined few prerequisites for people who may not be aware with the topic. So here are the prerequisites. Once I am done with the prerequisites, which I will go on very fast, then we will start with the main talk. So the first one is absolute zero temperature. Now if we take a temperature scale, the lowest temperature on the temperature scale is called as absolute zero temperature. So absolute zero is nothing but 0 degree Kelvin, that's what we call it. In degree Celsius, it will be equivalent to minus 273 degrees Celsius. Okay, this is absolute zero. Now second is the concept of resistivity, resistance and conductivity. So resistance is nothing but the obstruction to the flow of current. Resistance is a conductor property but resistivity is a material property. Resistivity is the resistance per unit length per unit cross sectional area. You can see the definition comes from this formula, and conductivity is nothing but the reciprocal of resistivity. It defines the ease with which the current can flow through that material. Now here I have made this thing which animation which tells you about friction and resistance. So let's see. A person when he kicks the football, then he has to go again and kick the football again. Now what happens is every body continues its state of rest and uniform motion unless and until it is acted upon by an unbalanced force. So you can see that first the unbalanced force was the kick. But once the source energy of the kick was over, the person had to kick the ball again to make it move. That means the force which ate away this energy was friction. So similarly, if you see in a conductor, you have vibrations which are called as thermal vibrations, and because of which electron faces a difficulty in flowing through the conductor. Now this difficulty, we can see again, this difficulty or dif, dif, the difficulty with which the electron can move through the conductor is called as a resistance. So we'll use this further. Now there are two concepts. negative temperature coefficient of resistance and positive temperature coefficient of resistance, which basically tells us how resistance varies with temperature. You can see if temperature increase leads to a resistance decrease, such materials are called as negative temperature coefficient materials. For example, semiconductors. If the temperature increase leads to a resistance increase, such materials are called as positive temperature coefficient materials, which are our all normal conductors. So we are basically going to talk about all positive temperature coefficient materials in which temperature increase will lead to a resistance increase and temperature decrease will lead to a resistance decrease. I would like to go here once again. You will see that these vibrations are because of temperature. So if the temperature decreases, these vibrations decrease and the difficulty with which the electron moves in the conductor decreases. So that's how the positive temperature coefficient materials behave. If the temperature decreases, the vibrations decrease and hence the difficulty with which the electron moves in the conductor decreases. So we are basically going to talk about all positive temperature coefficient materials. Here in this slide, I will be talking about types of magnetic materials. There are three types of magnetic materials: diamagnetic materials, paramagnetic materials, and ferromagnetic materials. You can see here that in a diamagnetic material, these green lines are the field lines. The diamagnetic materials expel the flux. The field lines go away from the material, whereas paramagnetic materials attract the flux, weakly attract the flux. Whereas in ferromagnetic materials, they strongly attract the flux. Okay, so we'll keep this in mind. Diamagnetic materials throw the flux out of their body, or in other words, they get magnetized in the direction opposite to that of the field. Therefore, the susceptibility, that is magnetization with respect to field, is negative. I'll repeat because diamagnetism is going to be very important for superconductivity. Diamagnetic materials are materials which get magnetized in the direction opposite to that of field, and that's why they throw the flux out of the body. And hence you can see that magnetization over field is negative. So similarly for paramagnetic and ferromagnetic materials, as I said, they will not be so much relevant, but just for the sake of comparison, I have given them here. Now let's go to our next slide. Now I'll be talking about diamagnetism specifically. Now, as I said, in a diamagnetic materials, the diamagnetic materials will throw the flux out. But let us see, as the field goes on increasing, what happens to the flux? We can see here in the first picture, the field is weak. You can see that the color is light green, which indicates that the field is weak. When the field is weak, the diamagnet is strong enough to throw the flux completely out. We can see that if Hc is a critical value and field applied is very less than the critical value, at that time the diamagnet is strong enough to throw the flux out. But we see as the field becomes stronger, you can see that the green color becoming darker. As the field approaches this critical value, which will be specific for a particular material, we can see that the flux grazes through the material and the internal repulsion of the material is a little weaker as compared to this. Sorry. So we'll see that the flux is grazing. Now if we go to the third category, wherein we have crossed the critical field value, at that point of time you can see that the flux is stronger and now the flux can penetrate the body of the diamagnetic material because its internal repulsion is weaker. So if we want to plot this behavior, let's say we plotted our applied field versus the magnetization. If the applied field goes on increasing, the internal magnetization goes on increasing. But then this will happen only till a place where we reach a critical field. At this critical field, the entire diamagnetism is lost and the flux starts penetrating the superconductor. So this diamagnetic behavior is very important for understanding superconductivity. So I'll repeat, diamagnetic behavior indicates applied field magnetizes the material in the reverse direction, and as the field increases, the inverse magnetization also increases, and this happens up to a value of the field which is called as critical field. And the moment we go to the critical field, the flux starts penetrating. Now that we have covered the prerequisites, what we will do is we will now try to start the topic. Here is the outline. First we will talk of superconductivity, then we will talk of critical temperature, Misner's effect, BCS theory, type 1, type 2 superconductors, low TC, high TC superconductors, and then eventually we'll take one example application of superconductivity. So let's start. So if I have to tell you superconductivity in a nutshell, it's just one thing. If suppose this internal circle is a cross section of a superconductor, the superconductor is characterized by a property which is called as resistivity 0. Now this zero resistivity is protected by a diamagnetism, by a property of diamagnetism. So it's as good as diamagnetism saying do not disturb the zero resistivity. Zero resistivity is equivalent to infinite conductivity and hence called as superconductivity. So now you would ask that what is the need of superconductivity? We will see that if at all any motion is occurring, whether that motion is of electron in a solid or it is of a ball on the road or a car on the road, all these motions are actually consuming the power. So suppose if there was no friction, no resistance, there will be no power consumption. That means without them, the devices will consume very little or almost no power. And hence it will be, all the energy utilization will be more efficient. And this may lead to the solving of energy crisis problem. So that's why superconductivity and its study is important. Now let's go little back and talk about when was superconductivity discovered. Superconductivity was discovered by Onnes while studying mercury. And he found out that mercury at 4.2 degree Kelvin suddenly reduced its resistance to a very low temperature. You can see, resistance was reduced to a very low value at 4.2 degree Kelvin. You can see that it's 10 raised to minus 5 ohms. See, this resistance, it's very small, so it's considered as nearly zero. And that's why I said that the power consumption will be very little. Okay. Now there is the first quiz time. Hello, Radhika, am I audible to you? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, that is displayed already in the Q&A box for the participants.
So, shall I go ahead, Shweta?
Yes, ma'am, you can.
Thank you. So now let's start with superconductivity, a bookish definition. It's a phenomena in which the electrical resistivity suddenly drops to zero at a low transition temperature. Now this low transition temperature, as we have seen for mercury, it's very close to some 4.2 Kelvin or some lower than 10 Kelvin. Okay, so it's a very, very low temperature. Even room temperature is 300 degree Kelvin. Okay, and existence of zero resistivity is accompanied by presence of diamagnetic behavior. Critical temperature and critical magnetic field. So you can see here, there is a plot that I have displayed. In this plot, we can see that whenever the material has the field and temperature less than Tc and the field value is less than Hc, then the material behaves like a superconductor. And the moment these threshold values are crossed, the material starts behaving like a superconductor. So the value of Hc above which superconductivity disappears in the material is called as critical field, and the temperature below which the characteristics of superconductivity appear in a material is called as critical temperature. So this value is the critical field value at 0 degree Kelvin, and this is the critical temperature for a given material. So we should remember these are very important properties of superconductors: critical temperature and critical field. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Putting your second question.
Yeah. So I'll read the question also. The temperature at which conductivity of a material becomes infinite. Conductivity becomes infinite. So that means the resistivity would become 0. So what is the name of the temperature, or what that temperature is called? I just told you about this. Shall I move ahead?
Yes, ma'am, you can.
Okay, thank you. Now we will take time to understand this aspect. Misner's effect. In other words, Misner's effect is also called as flux expulsion. So you can see this red material is where the temperature is greater than the critical temperature. Let me remind you, critical temperature is the temperature at which the material attains superconductivity. So if we are cooler than critical temperature, then we are superconductor. But if the temperature is greater than critical temperature, then the superconductivity is lost. So we can say that when temperature is greater than critical temperature, the field lines can penetrate. But you can see the moment we cool this to a temperature which is less than the critical temperature, the material becomes diamagnetic and internal magnetization throws the flux out. Flux is expelled. So we can say that when a material is cooled in a weak magnetic field is all the while the flux has to be weak, because if the flux is greater than the critical field, then the flux will already start penetrating. Okay. So in a weak magnetic field, if we cool a material to a temperature that is less than its critical temperature, the material starts expelling the flux out of its body. This flux expulsion is called as Misner's effect. So let's see the transition again. So you can see the animation. If the temperature is greater, the flux is penetrating the body of the superconductor. But the moment the temperature is less, it's cooled, the material becomes diamagnetic and it throws the flux out of the body because of its internal negative magnetization. Now we will be talking about Bardeen, Cooper and Sherif theory. In superconductors, the existence of superconductivity is explained on the basis of Bardeen, Cooper and Sherif theory. You must be remembering the initial slide in which I showed that whenever we have vibrations of the lattice, that is the positive lattice we have, the electron faces an opposition to move from one end to other, and this opposition or difficulty is called as resistance. Sorry. But then in a superconductor, we don't have any resistance or negligible resistance. So the question is, what is such a thing that happens inside a superconductor to ensure zero resistivity? This was explained by 3 scientists, and because of them, the theory has got this name: Bardeen, Cooper and Sherif theory of superconductivity. Bardeen, Cooper, Sherif theory of superconductivity states that inside a superconductor, electron does not move alone. Electron moves in Cooper pairs. You could see these 2 red dots moving here. Now what happens is, when the first electron enters the lattice, the thing is it displaces the lattice. Now because of this displacement, a net positive charge is created here. You can see. And because of this net positive charge, the other electron gets attracted to the first electron. And because of this, a single electron is able to attract the other electron. Even though negative charges should repel each other, but because of the lattice cooperation, one electron is able to attract the other. And thus, electrons help other electrons via lattice pulling to form Cooper pairs, which results into very good current in superconductor. I hope this is clear. So this is the working of superconductivity, which is also called as Bardeen, Cooper and Sheriff theory. These two electrons are called as Cooper pairs. Hello? Is
Yes,
there?
ma'am.
Yeah. Hello? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So
The question is posted, ma'am.
yeah. So the question is, the superconducting state is perfectly dash in nature. I have been talking about that property. So you can see the options and answer accordingly. Okay. So now what will we do? Let's move ahead. Now this slide tells us types of superconductors. There are two ways in which superconductors can be classified. I'll talk about both the types of classifications. First, we will start with soft and hard superconductors, which are also called as type 1 superconductors and type 1 superconductors and type 2 superconductors. So here I have shown plots. So you will see that type 1 superconductors are the conductors about which we have been talking about. Like they have a critical temperature, they have a critical field, and then inside this region the material will behave like a superconductor. The moment you cross the critical field or you cross the critical temperature, the material will behave like a normal metal. It will lose all its zero resistivity and infinite conductivity. So you can see here they have only one critical field, and this critical field is very low, almost like just to give one idea, I have written a number around 0.5 Tesla, and there is no mixed state. That means either the material will be superconductor or normal. There is nothing which is in between. But when we see type 2 superconductors, we can see that there are two critical fields, and if the material is to be a normal metal, it has to go through one state which is called as a mixed state. Now what happens in the mixed state? In the mixed state, the superconductivity starts getting lost, but it's completely lost only after we cross the critical field value 2, and then the material gets converted to a normal metal. So we can see that here we have only one critical field, here we have two critical field, Hc1, Hc2, and here the critical field value is 0.5 Tesla. So that means the moment you cross around 0.5 Tesla, you lose superconductivity. But then if you see here, the Hc2, that is the threshold at which the material gets converted to a normal material, is around 20 Tesla. Okay, so and the last point is, here there is no mixed state, either superconductor or normal material. Here there is a mixed state wherein the material has gradually started losing superconductivity but not yet become a completely normal material. Okay, so now other points. Now here in soft superconductors and type 1 and type 2 superconductors, again here you can see the diagram that I have graphical representation of field versus magnetization. In diamagnetism, if you remember, I showed as the magnetic field goes on increasing, the magnetization also goes on increasing. Now this is a perfectly diamagnetic behavior. So when a material behaves like a perfect diamagnet, it is a superconductor, because superconductivity is always protected by diamagnetism. But then you will see at the critical field, this diamagnetism is lost. When the diamagnetism is lost, the superconductivity is not protected, and if it is not protected, then the material becomes normal. Let's see the same thing for the hard superconductors. You can see that till the critical field value, what happens is the superconductivity is protected by diamagnetism. Okay, so the material is like a superconductor. But now this diamagnetism in type 1, it's abruptly lost. That means the moment you reach this critical field, the diamagnetism is abruptly lost. The diamagnetism is abruptly lost. But when you see from Hc1 to Hc2, what happens is the diamagnetism is gradually being lost. So the superconductivity also is being gradually lost because the protection of superconductivity is diamagnetism. So the moment we start losing diamagnetism, we start losing superconductivity as well. But it's not completely lost until and unless we have reached Hc2. So a material has superconductive property till it becomes a normal metal. So till Hc2, the material still has superconducting property, but this state is mixed state because the material is not a perfect superconductor in this state, or neither is it a normal metal completely. Okay, so that's what we say. We can say that this follows Misner's effect strictly. That means here the flux will be expelled because the material is diamagnet. Here the flux will penetrate because it's not diamagnetism. So Misner's effect followed, and in this boundary Misner's effect not followed. In this boundary Misner's effect followed, here Misner's effect not followed, but here Misner's effect is partially followed. The flux gradually starts penetrating because diamagnetism is gradually being lost. So here I have written diamagnetism abruptly lost. Here diamagnetism is gradually lost from Hc1 to Hc2. So that is why, because the critical field value is very low here, so this type of materials have very limited applications, whereas the type 2 materials, as they allow a wider range of critical field, they have wider range of applications. I told before that I will be also telling some other type of classifications. The other type of classification is low Tc superconductors and high Tc superconductors. We can see that superconductors that require liquid helium coolant are called low temperature superconductors. That means whenever we have the liquid helium coolant, that means if we need a critical temperature which is around 4.2 degree Kelvin above absolute zero. I have told you what is absolute zero. So such superconductors, or the materials which require such a low temperature to gain superconductivity, are called as low Tc superconductors. But the superconductors which require liquid nitrogen, that means they need a temperature around 77 degree Kelvin or above, will come under the category of high Tc superconductors. Okay, so we have two variants, low Tc superconductors and high Tc superconductors. So you can see that if at all we have to go to such a lower temperature, in that such a low temperature, then we will have to spend a lot of energy to cool this much. So such superconductors will be of less use. If we look at this temperature, that means at least less amount of energy required in cooling this much. Suppose if this 77 can be made 300, that means such superconductors we will be able to use at room temperature. And only if we are able to use superconductors at room temperature, then it is important for us, because our devices can use the benefit of having zero resistivity. In case of low Tc superconductors, if we use all the energy in cooling to attain superconductivity, then there is no energy saved as such. So low Tc superconductors are of less importance, only theoretical I can say, just for understanding that superconductivity exists. but it's very important to have high TC superconductors. So you will see that the current area of research is flourishing in the area of high TC superconductors. So you can say that nowadays that current research, you can say around 2019, the last paper that I have seen gives you a critical temperature of around 203 degree Kelvin. So room temperature is 300 degree Kelvin and 203 is the highest critical temperature possible at which we can attain superconductivity. So you can say still there is scope that we can reach 300 degree Kelvin and make day-to-day devices using superconductors. Okay, so there is quiz time again.
Yes, ma'am. I am just posting it.
Yeah. So I'll read it out for all of you. Which of these are the properties of superconductors? First, superconductors are diamagnetic in nature. Second, they have zero resistivity. They have infinite conductivity. And fourth one is all of the above.
It's posted, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Shweta.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now we have come to the cream. What I have done is to avoid confusing, I have prepared one application. There is a slide and animation for this application of superconductors in maglev. Now this maglev is magnetic leviated vehicle. This maglev uses Misner's effect. So I would like to quickly go and brush up Misner's effect. So Misner's effect, that's what I said. If you have a superconductor which is cooled, the moment you cool the superconductor, the flux is expelled out of the body of the superconductor. Now, the moment you expel flux, you throw the field out of the body. That means you repel the field. And because of this repulsion, we will be getting a magnetic flux expulsion. Okay. And this Misner's effect will be used in the maglev trains. Okay. So that's why I have come to revise this. Let's go back. So let's go to Misner's effect. Here is the concept of maglev train. Now we have to understand one concept here. You can see that there is a body of the train. These are the tracks. Okay, these are the side rails. And you can see here an animation. Now before even I start talking about, because this is a very intricate concept which has to be explained in thorough details. First thing, if this train was a normal train, the wheels in contact. The moment the wheels are in contact with the rails, we have friction. Suppose if there is 100% of energy invested in motion of this train, almost the 90% of energy is eaten up by friction, which is because the rails are in contact with the wheels. Now the concept of the maglev train is to avoid this contact. The moment this contact is avoided, the 90% of energy that is being consumed by friction is saved. This energy can be used in magnetizing our diamagnets and then effectively creating a repulsion so that Misner's effect is applicable and the flux expulsion lifts the vehicle. The moment the vehicle is lifted, this vehicle and the track does not have any contact. And if the track and vehicle and the track do not have any contact, then in that case there is no friction. This is called as levitation. Levitation means floating wherein there is no contact. And if there is no contact, there is no friction. But now the question is, if this vehicle is floating, how do we keep the vehicle in place? As we have seen, our local train moves on the rail. If the train is moving on a rail, it's very easy to make the train held. But when the train is floating, it's very difficult to keep it held. So you can see that the tracks are made higher and the train is going in between them. Now what happens here is, you can see a north pole and a south pole is there here, and a south pole is here. This north pole and south pole attract each other to keep the train intact, attached with the track. You can see the same thing here. But now this south pole and south pole create a repulsion which pulls the train up from the track below. The side tracks attract, whereas the lower part of the track pushes or creates that repulsion that creates a levitation of this bogie. Okay, so you have this attraction, north-south attraction and repulsion. Okay, this repulsion is making it afloat, making it levitated. Now, when we talk of propulsion, propulsion means how the train, this is when the train is at one place. Now, you can see this animation with which this track is going on moving ahead. I want you to notice that these are electromagnets in which the current is being flown in a different direction again and again. So, at one cycle of current, this is a north pole, at one cycle it is a south pole. So because of that, we have alternate attraction and repulsion, which leads to the propulsion of this vehicle. And the moment current goes on flowing, this vehicle moves forward while parallelly being afloat. So I will read the bookish definition of propulsion and levitation here. As the direction of the current changes back and forth, you can see back and forth, north pole gets converted to south pole. So if you have clockwise north pole, anti-clockwise south pole, in the propulsion coils, the walls of the guideway, the north poles and south poles reverse repeatedly, propelling the train by alternating the forces of attraction and repulsion. So you can see, so if I have a south-south, it will be repulsion, and then north-south attraction, and it is going on alternating, which pushes this carriage ahead. Levitation is being afloat. The train is levitated by force of attraction, this one, which pulls up the magnet on the train, as well as by repulsion, which pushes up on the magnet. So these are the forces by which the train or this carriage is levitated. Levitated means floating. And because this floating is there and there is no contact, therefore, if there is no contact, there is no friction. And because of this no friction, we can achieve very high speeds. So even a prototype of such a train can give us around 500 kilometers per hour, whereas our local trains only can attain a maximum of 100 kilometers per hour. So this is the best part, that because of avoiding friction, we can save energy, and these trains move at a very fast speed. This is one of the applications of superconductivity. Okay, so this is the last question. The magnetic lines of force. Hello?
I'm just posting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, posted.
The magnetic lines of force cannot penetrate the body of a superconductor. This phenomena is known as isotopic effect, BCS theory, Mason's effect, London theory. So with this, I complete my talk. Questions?
Thank you so much for the information, ma'am. We have a few questions, ma'am. First is, how are the Cooper pairs formed?
Cooper pairs formed. So I would like to go to this slide of mine. Yes. Here, what I have tried to explain is, suppose when the first electron comes here, okay, what happens is these positive charges are pushed close to the electron. Now, because of these two being displaced, in this entire lattice, there is a net positive charge created here. And because of this positive charge being created, the other electron is pulled. So that means one electron pushes these two together, and these two pull the other electron together. So because of this lattice interaction, one electron interactively attracts the other one, and this is how a Cooper pair is formed. Hello?
Yes, ma'am. The next question is, what is the function of phonons? If I've said it right, phonons.
Yeah. The phonons are nothing but, these lattice, the energy, the interaction, whenever these lattice interactions, they radiate phonons. Okay, so whatever I have said, this work is being done by phonons. I just didn't use the word because it may create, because I was expecting that FEs to attend, so I have avoided using more technical words,
Yeah, no problem,
using
ma'am.
very simple language.
Yeah, so the next question is, why is superconductivity lost gradually in hard superconductors?
Okay, that's a good question. Okay, so now see, the thing is, what I am trying to say here by type 1 and type 2. So suppose if you have one material, it will come in this category or this category only. So there are some materials, the moment you cross the critical field of that material, they will give way to the field to penetrate inside the body. That's why this superconductivity will be abruptly lost. But there are some materials in which this field starts penetrating gradually. So it's, you can say, a material property. A vortex state is created. That's why this superconductivity is, you can say, gradually being lost here. This is a particular type of material. It's a characteristics of that material which have vortex state. You can't say that a material which is soft can behave also like a hard. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. The next question is, could you comment on the correlation between the interaction length scale of the Cooper pair phonons at temperature T? Further, how do the superconductors type manifest as well fermiron states at the wave vectors, having performed a Berry phase analysis?
I don't
I
know.
am
The question is so big I couldn't
Yeah.
interpret.
Should I break it?
I would like to answer this question. If I could read it, that would be better.
Ma'am,
You know
I'll
that
just post it in your chat section. You can just see it.
yeah. So maybe I would answer this in the chat later once I have read it. Can we go to the next question for now?
Yes, ma'am, yes. The next question is, does the superconductivity depend upon the coolant?
Obviously, yes.
Okay. Next is, also at such low temperatures, can Cooper pairs form Fermi condensons in Josephson's junctions? Josephson's junctions.
Yeah, I actually did not talk about Josephson junction because I did not talk about the application of squids. So I don't know, Shweta, can you post this question too? Because you are pronouncing, means I am not able to understand the question, sorry.
I'm so sorry, ma'am.
No
Yeah,
problem.
I'll post it and I'll take the next question for now.
Yeah.
What is the cause of superconductivity in high TC superconductors?
What is the cause of superconductivity in high TC? Actually, the thing is that theory is still not known. The BCS theory, this point I intentionally avoided because students get confused for this. So the thing is, when we are talking of low TC superconductors, BCS theory explains that. Okay, but then when we are talking, and in fact for type 1 also BCS theory only explains. For hard superconductors also BCS theory is not able to explain, and high TC also BCS theory does not explain. So we are in search of this theory, like present research still is searching.
Okay, ma'am. One last question, ma'am. Can I have a yeah? Can you please answer my query on BCS theory? As you said, when two lattice points are attractive towards a moving electron, due to lattice vibration, there originates a positive charge. Can you please elaborate this?
So, for example, if I have two positive charges here, okay, you can say, and if the electron was, when the two positive charges come closer, there is, because of these two positive charges coming closer, the next electron gets pushed. That's why I said that this coming electron feels the previous electron is being shielded by these two positive charges. Shweta, do you understand what am I trying to say? So suppose when I have an electron here, suppose these two were here only and this electron was here. So the next electron would have felt repulsion from this electron. But if these two are pushed closer and they shield this electron effectively, then the coming electron feels that there is positive charge, not seeing the previous electron, so it gets pulled looking at this positive charge. That's why I said an effective positive charge. I hope, because I am not
Yes,
getting
ma'am,
any
you
feedback.
have.
This is my
I am so sorry,
first
but
webinar.
I don't have that much knowledge out here, so I can't
No.
tell you if you have answered it or not.
No, this is my first webinar and it's like a non-interactive class. Like, I don't know. I don't
Ma'am, I
understand.
have many questions out here that have been pouring out from my attendees, but then I would ask all my
No, that's why
attendees
I
that,
kept 15 minutes for question answers. I kept a lot of time.
do you want me to ask them?
Uh, uh,
Or
shall
we
I
can,
post? Means I would like to answer in the chat box if that's okay. I don't know. Means because I don't know if the person who's asking the question is satisfied or not. So it's like I'm talking to the person who's not asking questions. I don't know.
ma'am, there is another option we have is we are going to post this video on YouTube anyways today. So you can, I'll post out the questions also if you don't mind, and you can answer them.
That will also do. That will
Yeah.
also do.
Sure. So at this moment, I would like to thank you for sharing a lot of information about Cooper effect and superconductivity. And I'm sure the first year students are going to be really happy that the topic that they are going to have in their first semester is already given a light on. So I thank you, ma'am, and this is a small token of appreciation from us. I thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And the schedule for the next day will be displayed. I'm posting the feedback link. The attendees can get the feedback link from them. Yes, I have posted the feedback link. We'll also be mailing you the feedback link and it will also be displayed on the website. You can kindly access it there. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.